welcome to the Tech Cuddle. We have Jill and James from ControlBionics here to do round two. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Attendees, just a reminder, you can throw questions to our presenters in the chat. I'm going to keep an eye on that, and we'll get those into our presenters when we can. So Jill, James.
Great.
Okay.
Hey, Dustin, thanks so much for having us. I'm Jill Adlin. I am a licensed speech language pathologist and also the ControlBionics consultant for the Appalachian region, which means North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Kentucky, beautiful places. And this is my very esteemed colleague. I don't even know if I would call you a colleague, James. I think the level you're functioning at maybe puts you in a different place.
Teammate is the word, okay. Jill. Teammate.
And this is James Shorey, who's our Chief Technology Officer, and you will not be comfortable with this, James, but I did advertise you as our all-around genius.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I'm excited with what we have today. We did one of these with Dustin some time ago, and Dustin is sharing that link. So if you want to learn more about the NeuroNode trilogy, there's this session, plus there's a session that we did some time ago, and Megan, our Megan here, did that session. What we're showing you today is the NeuroNode trilogy, but a little adjunct product that we have to go along with it called Context and Effect. It's this little box right here. And what it does is it allows you to break out from speech generation and go into things like gaming, robotic control, and toy control. So what we're going to start with first is just to kind of give us a baseline on what the NeuroNode trilogy is all about. And I think what we'll do is we'll try to screen share on Jill's side. And then once we get a sense of that, and it doesn't have to be fully comprehensive because we've got the previous set, the trilogy, and then I'll go over the context and effect part of it.
Very good. So I'm going to, oh my goodness, I definitely do not want to see two of me. So I'm going to make sure you can see the trilogy. So this will be just a touch and go on the trilogy because as James and Dustin indicated, Dustin's thrown the link up to that previous session that really went into depth. And there is so much here in terms of communication software and just ways to access the web and Facebook and your phone and your text messages and your email. So there's a lot to be seen here. We're just going to kind of give a brief overview so you can see where we kind of started with this NeuroNode and Trilogy system. So I am wearing the NeuroNode. That is our constant guest for today. So this guy plays a huge role in everything, and it's what's really different about what ControlBionics offers. If you work with anyone who has particular difficulty motorically accessing anything, this is just an absolute game changer because it is a way to access a variety of devices with just a very, very tiny movement. So for now, I'm going to show you the screen with this is our controller app, and this is what interfaces with our NeuroNode wearable switch. Right now, I am in EMG mode. You have an option for spatial or EMG mode. So I'm going to push play. And the blue line that you see is registering my muscle activity. And so I'm holding my arm up so you can see how little movement it takes. So when you hear that beep, that would act as a click on my computer. So very little movement required, and I'm able to get an activation. The blue line, as I said, is the movement of my muscle. The yellow line above that is my resting level. So my muscles are at rest and staying below the yellow line. And then when I make enough of a movement for that blue line to go above the green line, you will hear the audio sound. And that means the computer's registering that as a click. There's a lot more information. I'm going to just skim the surface with that. And I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of how I can use this along with my eyes to use the AAC software, the communication software. So if you are familiar with eye gaze devices, they are amazing. They're incredible. The technology has really improved. And I think most of the eye gaze devices out there are very impressive. If you've used them yourself and please do that. If you work with those devices, use them yourself as your only communication, at least for an hour, to really get some insight. It can be difficult because it can make your eyes tired. You can get pretty fatigued trying to hit that sweet spot where you look long enough to activate what you want, but not so long that you get to this place where you're not activating things too quickly, so you don't accidentally activate something you want, but that when you get to what you do want to activate, you don't have to look for too long. That can actually be quite fatiguing for your eyes and a little harrowing. So I'm going to show you how that looks if I'm using my eyes to move around the screen and the neuronode to select. So that movement was just from me putting my arm in my lap. So I'm going to let it come to rest. And I'm going to bring up our eye gaze device. Oh my goodness, I have got a lot of Zoom controls in the way. So hold on just a moment.
And this is quite a session to be doing what Jill is doing, plus controlling a Zoom session. So.
Okay, let's see. Whoops. I think I have. Yes, I moved too much there. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. I have brought up another window. I don't know if everybody can see that. Okay, here we go. I'm going to sit back because I've accidentally closed my grid. It's technology in a, there we go. As you can see, okay, this is great actually, because you can see that we have got so many options in terms of AAC software. That's just a sampling of all the things you can do. So I'm going to show you one of these. And here we go. My positioning may not be great. There we go. So I can say, okay. This is amazing. So pretty fast. If you've worked with anyone with communication software, you can see that happens to be one of, as you saw, many grid sets that are available. This one works with a keyboard and word prediction to be very fast. So those aspects of it make it fast, but even better is being able to use my eyes. And if you've used eye gaze yourself, the fact that I can look all around this screen and I can see what I want without it accidentally activating. That's a big deal. And you saw that my movement was very tiny to make that happen. So that combination comes together to be speedy, not fatiguing, and very accurate, which is not something you always get with eye gaze. So that's where we started. And now we're going to take this neuronode to new and even more fun places with James.
Okay, wonderful, Jill. And one thing to mention there is you can immediately change the type of access. So if eye fatigue were a problem during the same day, Jill could switch to switch scanning only, and then the eye tracking goes away, and it's the neural node completely controlling the communication then. And that's what we have here. So no eye tracking, switch scanning, and you can easily switch between those two modes then.
And right now, because of the last person I evaluated, we have a very slow scan speed. That's all customizable. So I could speed this up a bit. It's also going item by item because, again, the last person that I evaluated was a little bitty girl, and she needed to hear each item. So that's how that works. As it scans across what I want, I'm going to activate and be able to say what I want when I want to with, again, very little movement. And James, thanks for reminding me to bring up that scanning, because I should point out that you don't always stick to one method or the other. I have 3 clients right now who use eye gaze for a portion of the day and scanning for another portion. So it just depends on how they're feeling, how their eyes are, how their head control is. I have one gal who needs to have different positioning outside of her wheelchair from time to time. When she's in a wheelchair, she uses eye gaze. When she is on the positioning table, she uses scanning. So we really have people who are making full use of the fact that you can access this device in any way that you can think of. Any form of alternative access that you can think of for a device is available on this one trilogy system. So I've got scanning, obviously direct select, we can use this as a touch screen. I've got scanning option. Traditional eye gaze still use with eye gaze with the trilogy.
Okay.
So it's something that we have a lot of folks making use of all of that.
All right, so now we go to from speech generation, which is what Jill had there, to other ways to use the NeuroNode and the trilogy. And what I'd like to do is to start out by showing a couple of really short videos. One shows how to use the context and effect box that we have here. Again, this is it here with the switch outputs. The context and effect box to control an Xbox adaptive controller. And you'll see that our friend that's using it is actually playing pinball with one NeuroNode as a switch, but actually controlling 3 different controls: the left flipper, right flipper, and the plunger. So let me see if I can get that started. And here we go. Share. And take this out of the way. And let's go to this one. Okay, again, this is our friend Nick. He's going to play Xbox Pinball with the NeuroNode through this context and effect box that's brand new from ControlBionics. Oh, and let me do one other thing here. I'm going to do one thing here, and that is to change my sharing so that you can hear what's on my computer sound. So there we go, and she'll give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
Playing pinball.
Got it.
On the Xbox. We have this really cool technology that is become available that's not available to the public yet, but Nicholas is the first in the entire world to try out this NeuroNode.
There it is.
Controlling basically the flippers and the little plunger ball for this particular video game right here. It's all done through the Xbox adaptive controller. But what makes this unique is we have from ControlBionics this little prototype right here that has been developed. It's called Context and Effect. And it's basically allowing him to, with just one switch, which is right here on his wrist, being able to control both flippers and also the plunger. Do you need me to push the start button again? Give me 1 second here. All right, here we go. So let's see if we can zoom up here and take a little watch at what's going on here. So again, we're playing pinball, and through just one switch on his NeuroNode, which is the eye gaze technology, but through ControlBionics, their trilogy system. Just with that one switch, he's able to control both flippers and also the plunger. And basically this little prototype that's being developed, kind of patent pending, I guess is the best way to put it, right down here, can be programmed for any different video game using up to, it looks like 4 different switches, as you can see right there. Let's see what you got, Nick. Here we go. So James from ControlBionics, he's the one that's developed this software and just done a fantastic job coming up with this new technology. And again, Nicholas is the first in the entire world to try out this new technology, and we've been kind of working with James off and on through Zoom and really making some progress here on learning how to use this on his video games. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Okay, so that was the first video, and just to emphasize what Nick was doing there with a single switch, and that is the NeuroNode that Jill demonstrated. Nick is able to control both of the flippers and the plunger, And the way that that works is you use the context and effect app and the context associated with it to decide which switch output you're using, which control you're using, so that you can build these more complicated games and only use a switch or two switches to access the game. And of course, the Xbox Adaptive Controller is a huge part of that. So the context and effect box, you saw the jacks on the end of it. Those go out to the Xbox Adaptive Controller, and you basically design the game or the control system that matches your access method. In the case of Nick, just a single switch, and that's both flippers, and that's the plunger. So the second video we have is going to be the OB feeding robot. And this is me that's controlling it, but this will show you how to basically use the same context and effect machine, and rather than playing a game, to use the OB for a dining experience. So here we go. Let me stop this for a second. Get out of this full screen mode. Okay, over to here. Okay, back to save. Okay, here we go. And with computer sounds, we'll share and play this guy.
Okay, this is a video of the
Can you hear Jill?
neuronode.
Okay, it's quiet though.
I've been calling the neuronode cause and effect
Better?
that controls switch outputs. And
Yes.
the OB feeding robot, which is this guy right here with its carousel of treats. This is the specialized application for interfacing to switches, whether those are Xbox or toys, or in this case, a feeding robot. And of course, this is the neuronode. And the way that I have this set up is I'm controlling this with a single neuronode. I have a short press for select my food, and then the long press is for feed me. So you can see as I go through here, I'm making my selection with each short pulse there. Now, if that's the food that I want, I just make this a long pulse, and he's going to dig into that food, and he's going to deliver it to a pre-programmed place that is right by my mouth. Of course, I'm not sitting here just for the illustration of this. And that's it. That's the neuronode with our specialized app for switch control and the OB feeding robot. Thank you.
All right, and that's that part of it.
James, can I insert something here? Because I think it's really important. Technology is incredible, and it can seem super, super complicated. So I always say one of the best things I bring to the assistive technology field is that I am not in any way tech savvy at all. I have no smarts in this realm. I'm not particularly gifted in this realm. And yet this is all very knowable and doable from my perspective. So I am not a science guy. I'm a regular old speech language pathologist, like so many people who may be watching us. And this may look complicated when you see what all had to go into the programming, or when you're looking at the app and seeing all the customizable parts that are there. But it is so simple to use. So one of those things is it works at both the surface level and the deep level. So you can open it and go. That's just something I want to put out there, because I know it can feel threatening to people sometimes when they look at something that appears complex, but it can be very simple for those of us who need it to be simple.
Yes, right. And that's a perfect segue into this, Jill, where the context and effect allows you to use cards. So if I want to turn it into the feeding dining experience, then I can swipe that card and do that. If I want it to be my gaming experience, I can swipe this card. So the machine is already set up, and you just, with a swipe of the card, turn it into that machine. And I think maybe, Dustin, if you're still there, we're on 10 more minutes. Is that right? Approximately with.
Yeah. I want
Q&A?
people to, if you have questions, throw them in the chat box. Jill, you actually answered. The reason I came back on the video was it was a question I wrote down. Does this require like an ATP or somebody with a strong tech acumen to be able to set it up? So thank you for addressing that.
I know that was always an issue for me I was on AT teams, and I know speech pathologists were always concerned and felt that because I came from that was coming from the AT department, that I had some special skill level. I cannot tell you, I can't stress enough how much that's not the case. You can't ask for it to be more simple than that. And I think that's the beautiful part of having a great brain, is James can both conceive of it at that deep technical level, and then understand that for those of us who don't have that ability, he can create something like that card to swipe. That's very easy. That's like Apple Pay. You just swipe it and it's programmed and ready to go for you.
Is there any way
Right.
for people to experience this thing? We just had a question come in. Any way for people to experience this and kind of test it out during times of social distancing?
Well, I can answer that question to start with. We definitely would want anyone that has that interest to call into the office and just ask for sales, and we can get them started on giving it a try. You notice that Nick and his family using the Xbox pinball. I have never met them in person, so that entire setup was done by Zoom, to the point where they were using the equipment. So we were telepresence savvy before COVID, ControlBionics that is, and all the more so now. The key is that once you have your machine designed, then you just walk up to it and turn it into the machine you want it to be, and play pinball, play OB feeding robot. I wanted to share the screen once more, just to give you a sense of how easy it is to go from one machine to the next. So this is this and sound, and okay. Now you should see the context and effect app. Is it up on the screen there?
It is.
Okay, and we have my cards. So let's say I want to turn it into the feeding robot. So here we go, scan my card. And now what it's going to do is it's going to scan through these choices.
Finished.
And it's in a communication mode right now.
Go OB.
So it's allowing me to
More.
say that I want more, or that I'm finished, or that I need additional help.
Help.
But if I want to go to the machine
Go
itself,
OB.
I make my neural node switch, and here I am. And now the beauty of it is this will move my spoon from compartment to compartment, just a little activation, and a hold, just a bit of a hold of that activation
Go OB.
will allow me to select what I want.
More.
And you'll see that it changed on me.
Finished.
Because it sees that I'm not eating.
Help.
So it moved to the help screen.
Go OB.
But I go back to this, and now it's actually sending the outputs through the box. You can see the green light up at the bottom. So I'm moving my spoon around, and a long press will actually deliver the food. And you'll hear that I've got some sound effects here. So if I turn these sound effects off, they go away. But oops. Okay, sound is gone. The key though is you'll see that countdown, you can set that to whatever you want, but the machine understands that if I haven't moved my spoon or taken a bite in whatever amount of time that I set, then I probably need to say something about the dining experience. So I could let it time out here because I'm done. And I come in here and I say, it's going to automatically shift to the next part of the machine.
Go OB.
And I just say,
More.
I would like more, please.
like more.
Finished.
Thanks. I'm finished.
And I'm finished. And then from there, I can go to the pinball machine. And here with a single switch, you'll see I'm sending outputs out of two of my jacks for the flippers. And if it times out, which it will here in a second, it knows, well, I'm not using my flippers. So that must mean that I need a new ball. So it's automatically going to shift to this, and it's going to output from a different switch jack to give me control of the plunger. All of that going into the Xbox Adaptive Controller.
And I would love to just put in here, I know if you're working in this realm, how many times you have a client or a student who you really can't find more than one switch site. I mean, it's very difficult sometimes. So being able to do so much from one place that requires so little movement is really a game changer, really opening up whole new areas for people, even with minimal movement. So that it's a big deal for me.
That's right. You're taking the NeuroNode, which allows you to find a switch anywhere on the body with the smallest of activation, the smallest of movement, and you're combining it with this context and effect machine, which allows you to weave together this machine that basically allows you to take that one switch wherever it is and control multiple outputs, so that you can control the entire game with some thought about how to weave all of that together.
Right.
Very cool. We've had a couple of questions come in here related to funding and payment for the devices. I'm assuming that those states that have assistive technology service definitions in their waiver program, that is probably a big channel to get this paid for, as well as insurance. Can you kind of speak to that, I guess?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the communication device, that's going to be funded under most insurance programs as a speech generating device. So we're covered there. For context and effect, you would have to look for some different outside sources. But yeah, those state programs, and there is one for sure here in Tennessee. There are programs through the state that offer money for assistive technology devices that outside of the context of an SGD. And James, do you have more information about that?
Well, I would think, for instance, in the case, the VA funds the NeuroNode, and they also fund other things like dining robots like the Obi. And really what you want to do is package it as one, so that you give the veteran the access method that actually allows him to use the feeding robot, apart from just a jelly bean switch or something. Because the NeuroNode is divorced from a place, so you don't have to reach out and hit the jelly bean switch. It can be anywhere. You can activate it with the shrug of a shoulder, a turn of the head, a tap of the toe, and we have that. We have a veteran that uses the trilogy and uses eye gaze, but does a toe tap for the selection, and that serves him really well.
And just along those lines, just thinking about the fact that, and this is a little bit of a jump back, but just that if my movement is to move my finger, we know that sometimes our folks their tone increases as the day goes on. And so if I've got my arm down here at 9 o'clock and I move my finger and I get a switch and it can do any of these things that we've shown you, but my tone goes up as the day goes on and now my arms are up here. If I were trying to hit a traditional switch, I could no longer get to it. I'm going to have to move that around. But even if my arm is up here, I can still make that finger switch and I still now have access to that whole realm. And yeah, so there for any of those agencies that would fund AT devices, that would be what we would look to for this.
Yeah, so for those of you that are doing or in the Medicaid waiver world, it's probably AT service definition or AAC, or have you ever done it through DME, like durable medical equipment?
Not that I'm aware of.
And then one of the other kind of questions that was kind of weaved in there is, do the state AT Act programs that every state has? I'm assuming that most of them have probably reached out to you guys and have demo devices or have your device in their lending libraries. So that may be another place where to kind of the question that came in earlier, how can we experience this?
Right, and the NeuroNode trilogy is the big part to fund, of course. That's the big ticket item, and we have pretty good coverage with it. We have the VA funding, we have Medicare, and we have Medicaid in most states, and then of course the state programs that you mentioned. So fairly well funded. The context and effect box, that's a bit easier. That's a bit easier of a reach to get to.
Right. So if you already have your Trilogy system, the context and effect as an add-on would be a very simple fix. And in terms of the loan libraries, we absolutely are out there. It depends on the state, and you know, they're being able to reach out to us. I know that we do have devices in some lending libraries. Sometimes we just have contacts with them and they'll call us in to bring the device and let someone try it. We can also ship out trial devices. As James said, we were already set up for Zoom well before COVID hit. And so we were really lucky in that when COVID hit, we really didn't miss a beat. We were able to just kind of keep up and running and getting devices shipped out to people and setting them up via Zoom or coming in person. So yeah, loan libraries, if you are in a state and your lending library does not have one, I would encourage you to ask them about that. Because then they can reach out to us and we can absolutely go out. I know that I personally have done a lot of demos for loan libraries, and I know that we have some in some areas of some of my states, and in others. So, you know, sometimes they don't have funding to be able to have the devices there. So in that situation, we would travel to the loan library and be able to work with the person there with the device that we bring.
Wonderful.
Does that answer that question?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's great. So how do people get in touch with you or reach out for more information? James, I think James said call the the sales department. Do you have something you can throw up on the screen there? Perfect.
So can you see that contact information?
We've got it. Yep.
Okay, perfect. I do want to say, and this is I worked as an SLP and AT specialist for years before coming to ControlBionics. And so I was so often the person on the other side of the phone trying to get support. And I absolutely love the support that we are able to provide. I say I get to do it the way I wish it had been done. We've got a 3-minute rule. If you try something for 3 minutes and you haven't figured it out, give us a call and you can get someone to help you either on the phone or via Zoom. We are kind of always there and available. It is not something you do on your own at all. I think you'd be surprised how easy it is, but we never want you struggling, and there will be somebody who will be there for you to support you as you go along. That's super important. I know my fellow speech pathologists out there understand the frustration of being with someone, having a question about their device and finding out that you have to submit an e-ticket and we'll get a response in 24 to 48 hours. That's not the case with us. You will be able to get someone to help you when you need it.
And speaking to that point, Dustin, if someone wants to just know more about the tech behind it, all they have to do is call the number that Jill has on the screen and just ask for James. I'd love to talk about this. So that you don't have to call sales and marketing if you really just want to find out more about what it is and what it can do. And we get those questions all the time. And that is, will it work with this? Or how would I combine it with this? We would love that challenge and love the chance to answer that question.
That's wonderful. I've already got a few ideas. I'll be calling the number and asking for James.
Good. I could use someone to chat with.
Well, I really appreciate you guys jumping on here. If there are any other questions out there, get them in quickly. But yeah, I appreciate you guys jumping on here and being in different states and manipulating multiple screens and applications. It turned out well. So thank you very much for your time and for showing us this today.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, Dustin.